guys, it's Elizabeth, Countess of Low Carb, and on this episode we're going to talk about intermittent fasting for weight loss and my intermittent fasting mistakes coming up next. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth, Countess of Low Carb, and on this episode we're going to talk about intermittent fasting for weight loss and my intermittent fasting mistakes that hopefully will help you if you're an intermittent fasting beginner. Hey guys, I have lost 67 pounds through keto, through intermittent fasting, and here's a before and after picture, another before and after picture, and another before and after picture. This journey of intermittent fasting has changed my life with the addition of keto, and if you love this video, make sure you give it a big old thumbs up. Click subscribe if you want to see all things keto, intermittent fasting, and weight loss. And also put down in the comments below intermittent fasting if you want to see more videos just like this one, as comments dictate what I do for videos. Now let's dive into my intermittent fasting mistakes and how they benefited me on my intermittent fasting weight loss journey. And if you are a beginner, you're going to want to stay tuned for this. My first tip for number one of my intermittent fasting mistake that I made was I undervalued how much intermittent fasting was going to help my weight loss process. I had been doing keto, was doing great at keto. Keto was life-changing for me, and Dr. Kendi Berry had recommended intermittent fasting and talked about it, and I thought because I come from an eating disorder background, it was not for me, it was dangerous. I had so many misnomers, but I started to educate myself, and that's my tip number one, is educate yourself. If you're an intermittent fasting beginner, educate yourself and then educate yourself some more, because that was the mistake that I made. Was I thought I knew it all. I thought your body needed fuel every few hours to be on an optimal level, and it was such a mistake and such a 1990s mentality. And my first tip with that from intermittent fasting mistakes is, and get Dr. Fung's book, The Complete Guide to Fasting. I call Dr. Fung the daddy of intermittent fasting because his stuff is just common sense. It's smart, but it's science-based and it makes sense. So if you don't have this book, check it out in the description link below. Get it from the library, rent it from a friend. You can buy it on the Amazon link that I have down below. But this has great resources, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. My second intermittent fasting mistake that I made, I wish I had known before starting my intermittent fasting journey, was about electrolytes. So our body gets depleted through keto, through eating like a high-fat, mono-protein diet, and then combining that with intermittent fasting, our body needs minerals, and where you get those minerals is through pink salt. So I use fine pink salt. I use these rocks pink salt. I'll put both down below. I also use molten salt. I get it in a 3-pack from Amazon. I'll put that down below because I was getting tired of carrying baggies around and looking like a drug dealer. So I would pop one of these rocks in my mouth through intermittent fasting. If I got really hungry, it would help me ride out my fasting time. I would just have a little bit. I would have maybe one of my rocks of my pink Himalayan salt, or just a pinch of the pink Himalayan salt, to help me ride through the hunger cravings. And then it literally, the minerals helped my body. In my classification, it does not break an intermittent fast if you're having a little pinch underneath the tongue. It just helps with the electrolytes, helps with the minerals. I wish I had known that when I first started intermittent fastings, because my fasting times would have been longer through using this tool. To me, it's an awesome tool to have, and that will help me extend my fasting times. Number 3 for my intermittent fasting mistakes that I wish I had known on my intermittent fasting weight loss journey and as an intermittent fasting beginner was that it's a mental thing. For me, mainly it was a mental mind game of thinking I couldn't eat and thinking I couldn't do it, to pushing myself to where I could do it, and then discerning the difference between, is it real physical hunger in my body, or is it a mental thing and I need to push past the mental barrier of thinking I can't do it, or having the habit of grabbing for food every couple of hours. That for me was one of my biggest mistakes, was learning the difference between the two, of when my body was literally done, it needed something to eat, it really needed to break the fast, or could I keep going? Could I push it to a 50-hour fast, which is my longest fasting time before my pregnancy was a 50-hour intermittent fasting time. So that would be my suggestion for people, is discerning and learning what is mental and what is actually physical. If you're loving this video, put down in the comments intermittent fasting and give it a big ol' thumbs up. Now back to the tip number 4. Tip number 4 for my intermittent fasting mistakes that I wish I knew as an intermittent fasting beginner would be that there's freedom in start times and end times. I loved having, and one of the biggest things that I love coming from an eating disorder background is knowing when I start and when I stop, and there's bookends on that, and there's a lot of freedom in those bookends. What I have is a free printable, I'll put it down in the description link below too, that helps me push past my time, and it's like a coloring sheet, which I know sounds like a 3-year-old, but hey, sometimes I need 3-year-old tricks. It helps me see and helps encourage me to do more fasting time. And so having that freedom within boundaries of having a little extra tool of like a coloring sheet helped me really appreciate my start time and my end time, and knowing when I was going to be able to finish so I could eat. That helped push me along. And I made the mistake before of sometimes shortchanging that, and that's one of my tip number 5 is if you feel like you need to shortchange and stop, and it's your body's physically telling you to stop, for me there's no shame in my game of cutting my fast shortened. However, that is also the inverse of that is true too, is there's no shame in that game, or it's the biggest joy of pushing past that time that I think I need to do a 24-hour fast and pushing it to a 36-hour fast, and just kind of pushing my body to its limits in a healthful sense. And again, obviously, like, this is all structured around like medically do what's best for you. If you have a lot of ailments, like, I know itself be true and know your body well enough to know when you should stop, when you shouldn't stop. But when I know that I'm in a healthful place and I can keep going, to actually keep going has been helpful. So having bookends, but also kind of pushing past those bookends too has been super, super helpful. The next intermittent fasting mistake that I wish I had known prior to starting intermittent fasting was telling people I was fasting. There's not a lot of knowledge, common day of fasting. People think that fasting is wackadoodle. And I would go out to, say, dinner with people, and I wish I had shared with them before we get to dinner, because I'd be like, oh, I'm just gonna have a Pellegrino, or oh, which speaking of which, I get Perrier and Pellegrinos by the case. I'll put those in the description link below. I get them on Amazon. The best price I usually find is $11 or $12 per case of Pellegrino or Perrier. Having water on intermittent fasting, super, super important. So I like to get it delivered to my house because I have a no schlepping rule. I know, but Costco, if I get in a pinch, they do have them, but usually they're $13 or $14 or $15 per case. Amazon, 11 or 12 bucks. I will get 3 or 4 cases at a time. Sorry, Jerry, he's our UPS guy. Sorry, Jerry, he's the one who's always lifting to my house. I'm grateful for you, Jerry. You're my homie. My next intermittent fasting tip is, so going back to the last one about telling people, is telling people before I go out to dinner, like, hey, I'm just not going to be eating. I'm going to be doing intermittent fasting. So it takes the weirdness out of it, of they know in advance. You know what I mean? And then I've had some people be like, well, do you just want to go for a walk? Or you just want to do this? Like, it just takes the weirdness out. Sometimes I have business meetings or business lunches where I have to go because it's because of business. And so I don't let them know in advance, but I usually do just share with them, oh, I'm doing intermittent fasting, and just kind of not give a huge explanation on it, depending on who, if it's a business or if it's personal, to give an upfront notice or not an upfront notice on it. So my next biggest intermittent fasting mistake that I made was not knowing what broke fast. And so reading this book, Dr. Fung, he has an awesome Facebook group, which I will also put down below. I'm a part of that Facebook group. I never really comment, I'm just like a lurker there, but they have great fasting information on there, and Dr. Fung sometimes pops in and answers people's questions, and I'm like, the daddy of intermittent fasting. On page 254, it does talk about what breaks a fast for intermittent fasting, and so this, just having this knowledge, I will put down below a post that I have on that, but like what you can have in your coffee, what you can't have in your coffee. Knowing these help increase fasting times is awesome, but any sort of protein does immediately stop your autophagy, which is another video for another topic, but autophagy with intermittent fasting is super, super important if you're on a 100-pound weight loss journey like myself and loose skin and the vanity component of having loose skin. We'll talk about that. If you want to see that in another video, put autophagy down in the comments below and I can totally talk more about the loose skin aspect of losing weight. But for intermittent fasting, I do encourage this book, and knowing what fats you can have and can't have during a fast are super, super important. I'll also put a blog post that I did on fats down below. The next intermittent fasting mistake that I make would be thinking about food too much. Literally going through intermittent fasting process, I realized that I have, obviously with an eating disorder background, a healthy relationship with food. And so this has helped heal that relationship with food, of where there's more of a respect, if I can use that word, there's more respect for food, and learning that my body doesn't need food all the time, and that my body does process really, really well as a body. Like, God made us fearfully and wonderfully made, and I think that's so stinking cool, the way that our bodies are made, and that they are set up for fasting. Like, our ancestors, they fasted. fasted, and it was no big deal. They would go on these hunts and then not eat, and then like it would be feast or famine. And then my body is optimal when I'm in a fasting state. I'm mentally more clear. I have way more energy, although I already have pretty high energy. I'm nicer. My demeanor's nicer to my hot husband and my sweet 3-year-old and our foster mentee. Like, life is just so much more enriched when I am on a fasting schedule. So I will put down in the description link below a couple of my fasting resources that I have, my free printable that I have to help encourage you with your times, and then also a tracking sheet with that too to help encourage you as well with fasting. That for me, for my personality style, I need that raw encouragement, and it's been super helpful for that. So put in the comments below intermittent fasting if you want to see more videos along this topic. Intermittent fasting weight loss has changed my life. I mean, keto changed my life first and foremost, but I never would have gotten into intermittent fasting had it not been for keto. And this is now an additional tool that I use with keto of high fat, moderate protein, low carb to help continue on my 100-pound weight loss journey. So hopefully these intermittent fasting mistakes that I made help you on your journey and help bless you along your way too. Make sure you give this video a big old thumbs up and click subscribe if you want to see more videos on keto and on intermittent fasting and all things weight loss. Wishing you guys a powerful day. Bye guys. Hey, it's Elizabeth.